Yam yam artam upadate dukkena sukkena hetavi tam tam dhunoti bhagavan puman sochati antakrit. This is a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam spoken by the Lord himself. It is very nice. Yam yam artam. Artam means all that we have, our properties. What happens is, at the time of our leaving, whatever things that we have, we always think that it will be with us. But what happens is, we don't realize that throughout our lifetime, as we are trying to acquire all these things, we acquire it in a certain manner. Dukkena sukkena hetave. With great difficulty and with great dukh, we are fighting for a fraction of sukh. For a little bit of happiness, we have to undergo great tribulations. You know what I mean in this world. You know, you work very hard for the whole week or the whole month. At the end of the month, you get your paycheck. And within a few days, half the paycheck is gone, isn't it? With all the hard work, it just takes very little time for all the hard work to just go away. Sometimes you raise your children with so much of blood and sweat, but it takes a fraction of a moment for them to decide that's all we want to do with you, and we move on with life. Sometimes you put so much of time and effort into something which you consider important. Yam yam artam upadate dukkena sukkena hetavi. But we don't realize tam tam dhunoti bhagavan. Whatever that you want to keep, by Bhagavan's arrangement, that is taken away from you. And the living entity who doesn't understand the value of true life, what happens to him is puman sochati antakrit. Socha, they are always in misery and they are in regret and they are in difficulty. And this is the problem in material life. There's one shloka, it sums up the entire frustration of material life. It is Janmashtami period, so it's very nice to remember Krishna in Vrindavan. And Krishna in Vrindavan, he spent most of his time actually with the cowherd boys, even more so than anyone else. Because if you read about his Vrindavan pastimes, in the morning he would wake up and he would be fed by Mother Yashoda. And after that he would be dressed up, he would be given a nice bath. At that time all the gopis and all the elderly gopis, they would all come to see Krishna being dressed because he would look so beautiful. He was just a child, 5, 6, 7 years old, sometimes even younger also. And then when he was at that age, after getting him ready, because he was at 5 in this particular Leela, he would gather together with all the other gopas, the cowherd boys, and their mothers would pack lunch for them. They had breakfast, but they would pack lunch for them. And then what they would do is, they would take their sticks and they would all go out to the pastures of Vrindavan, and they would tend not to the cows. They were too young to take care of the cows, but they would take care of the calves. You know, when young boys or girls, when they want to act grown up, you have to give them something, isn't it, to make them feel that way. So Nanda Maharaj would take care of the cows with the cowherd men, but he was kind enough to give the boys the calves. So the boys would go into the forests of Vrindavan with the calves, and they would pretend to be men. But they were boys. So what would happen is, halfway through, right, while pretending to be very serious about taking care of the calves, they would start playing with each other. Bhagavatam tells us they would steal each other's lunch boxes, or they would mix them all up. So nobody knew whose lunch box was whose, because everyone made a different kind of lunch. So they didn't know what was there, and they didn't know what was meant for them. They knew that when they went back home, they wouldn't have the same lunch box, and then they would be in trouble with their mothers. And that way they were playing and they were sporting in the forests of Vrindavan. And then suddenly Krishna would go a little further to look at the beautiful forests and the scenery of Vrindavan. And because he went much further, Bhagavatam says, all the boys would then have a game. They would all line up to see who would be able to run up to Krishna and touch him first. And like that they would chase each other, and sometimes they would be very mischievous. They would try to trip each other so that they could get to Krishna first. Vrindavan Dham represents the height of devotional ecstasy. Because even though it appeared as if these boys were ordinary, Bhagavatam tells us these boys who were gopas were actually very ancient and great devotees of the Lord, sages, great devotees who for millenniums had actually prayed very hard to be involved in intimately serving Krishna. And because of their great devotion to Krishna, Krishna gave them the opportunity to be eternally with him in Vrindavan. So these were not ordinary boys, and neither were their activities ordinary. as they were all running to Krishna, they had nothing else in their mind. They didn't look at the great forest, they didn't look at the beauty of the forest. They only had Krishna at the center of what they wanted to do. And this is very important, because no matter what they did, the residents of Vrindavan only would remember Krishna. Now, when Krishna was with the Gopas, the Gopis, who were also very young girls, people always think the Gopis and Krishna had a romantic relationship, but it is not true. The Gopis were 7-8 years of age. When the Gopis danced with Krishna in Rasa dance, they were 7-8 years old. Therefore, the feelings that you see in social media and philosophical speculation is not correct. If you read Bhagavatam, you will realize that the Gopis and Krishna were on a supremely spiritual platform. They were very young. And their mood was, Krishna, you are the center of our lives. You are everything to us. Tapta Jivanam. That is how they are known as. Tavakatamritam, Tapta Jivanam, Kavibiriditam, Kalmashapaham, Shravana Mangalam, Shrimadatam, Bhuvi Granantiye, Burida Janaha. The gopis say, Krishna, the nectar of your pastimes, as we hear about you, they are like nectar, katha, amritam. And this nectar of hearing about you, tapta jivanam, it sustains us through the day. Because in the morning you go away. And once you go away, we don't see you for a whole day. Aditiyad bhavan ahanikananam trute yugayate tvam apashyatam Kutila kuntalam Shri Mukam chate Jada udikshitam Pakshma kridrisham. They are singing in Gopi Geet that Krishna, in the morning we see you so beautiful, you're dressed up, and then when you go, it is like a yuga. Trute yugayate. It is like a yuga. It's only a few hours you go, but for us it is like a yuga, millennium. And when you come back, you look even more beautiful than you were before, because you have all the dust from the cows, from the hoofs of the cows. It is adorning your hair, and it makes you look even more beautiful. But when you come back, the problem is our creator Brahmaji, he has cursed us because he has given us eyelids. And because he has given us eyelids, every time we want to look at you without cessation, we can't, because our eyes will blink. And the moment our eyes blink, that moment, nimitta, that moment to everybody else is just a moment. We don't even realize we're all blinking all the time, right? If you look at each other, I'm looking at you, you're blinking so many times, right? You don't even realize that you're just blinking so much. And when we look at Krishna, when we blink, we don't feel separation at the moment of the blink, isn't it? In fact, we don't look at Krishna for days or so. We may think, oh, it's okay, now I am seeing Krishna. But for the gopis, that moment when the eyelids had to blink because it was involuntary, they curse Brahma. They say, this creator is too much. He has given us eyelids, and therefore we cannot unceasingly look at you. You see the mood of the Vrindavan residents? This was their mood. Why? Because they simply put Krishna in the center. So the Gopas were like that too. Anything, any play that they had in the forest, it was Krishna in the center. And so that day when they saw Krishna going very far away, they ran after him. And then Krishna ran further. And then suddenly they came across a path. And there on the path, they saw a large, deep cave. And they were wondering, what is this cave? The cave looked like a highway. And it was very deep. And when they looked at the ceiling of the cave, it was almost like it was touching the sky. And when they moved around the cave, they realized it was not a cave. It was actually the mouth of a huge serpent. And this serpent was known as Aghasura. Aghasura. Aghasura's sister was Putana. You remember Putana? Putana was the first demon sent to kill Krishna. Then she was killed by Krishna. Aghasura had a brother. This is family business of killing Krishna. He had a brother, and his brother was Bakasur, the stork. Bakasur was also killed by Krishna. So Aghasura came to Vrindavan sent by Kamsa with a motive deeper than even everybody else. Not only was he sent to kill Krishna, but he felt that Krishna had killed his brother and his sister. And he was thinking, my brother and sister's soul will only be put to rest when I have killed Krishna. You see, this is the problem with demons. They talk about noble things like I'll put someone to rest, because they did this, but then they'll kill somebody else also. This is demonic mentality. You use the sastras to your own benefit. Aghasura was saying, for me to perform proper funeral rites, I must avenge. Where is the relationship between proper funeral rites and avenging? But this is how demons think. They can twist and turn sastras. So we have to be very careful, because many of these great demons, they are very expert in quoting sastras also. Hiranyakashipu was very expert. Ravana was also very expert. But being expert is one thing. Applying it is another. Until we apply it, it is of no value. So what happened then was Aghasura came to Vrindavan, and he had one siddhi known as Mahima Siddhi. Mahima Siddhi means the ability to grow very, very big, right? So from a simple normal snake, he became a very huge snake. And Bhagavatam's description of his mouth was amazing. It was like a deep cave. His tongue was like a road highway, they say. And his eyes were like jewel moons in the sky. See, Bhagavatam is so poetic, And so at that point of time, the boys were looking. And the boys were thinking, this is not a cave. It is a huge snake's mouth. Should we go in? They sense some danger. But then they thought to themselves, what danger is there if Krishna is with us? Krishna is just here, nearby, right? What danger is there? While they were contemplating going in, Bhagavatam tells us the Devatas were watching. And the Devatas themselves were so afraid of this great Aghasura demon. Every time they saw this Aghasura demon, even though they were considered to be immortal because they were drinking Amrit every day, still their mortality was threatened by the demon. But Bhagavatam tells us these boys were not drinking Amrit every day. They were not. But their assurance of safety was completely reposed at the lotus feet of Govinda. You see? They had no means of prolonging their mortality. But their mortality was automatically protected and prolonged because they took shelter of Krishna. So if we take shelter of Krishna, then whatever time that we have in this world is always assured. It is always taken care of. If supposing something happens to us, if sometimes people say, what happens if I go into a coma? What happens if I'm unconscious? All my life I've remembered Krishna. At that point will I remember Krishna? Krishna says in Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita that to those who are exclusively devoted to me, yoga kshemam vahamyaham ananyas chintayantu mam ye janaha paryupasate nityam tesham nityam abhiyuktanam yoga kshemam vahamyaham. He says very clearly in 922 of Bhagavad Gita, if you are exclusively devoted to me, I will give you what you lack and I will preserve what you have. So if we lack the consciousness because of some debilitating disease, rest assured, Krishna will protect us. In one of our ISKCON centers in America, there was a very old, elderly lady. She was a pujari in the temple for almost 50 years. She served Krishna day in, day out. That was her life. Towards the end, she was diagnosed with dementia, Parkinson's, and her great worry was that she would forget. She would forget Krishna. So as the dementia increased, right, she forgot the people around her. But you know what happened? They noticed she kept chanting. She never stopped chanting. Now when you take up devotional service seriously, what happens is many of us are initiated. We are initiated. When we are initiated, we take vows. One of our vows is to chant 16 rounds of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra on our malas. It takes you about 2 hours a day, right? About 2 hours a day. So whatever happens, rain or shine, devotees will chant their 16 rounds because that is their vow to Krishna. And believe me, if you have chanted 2 hours a day, you cannot forget Krishna. Because for the rest of the day, the vibrations of the holy name will just continue. But this lady kept chanting. And every time the people came to her and told her, look, you've chanted enough, you can rest. You know what she would say? She would say, no, I haven't finished chanting. I've now completed my chanting. Krishna had arranged a facility that the only thing she forgot was that she had forgotten that she had chanted, which would mean that she would keep chanting. And in this way, she passed and ended her life chanting Krishna's names. This is proof in the modern world today that in whatever condition we are, the greatest assurance of safety lies at the lotus feet of Krishna. That is with no other person can give you safety. All of us are caught in the web of life and death. Can we save anybody else? We are also going to die. So who can save who? So these boys were greater than the Devatas, because Devatas were dependent on Amrit, but the boys were dependent on Krishna, you see. So what happened eventually was, the boys decided, let us walk in and see what happens. They were mischievous. Now Aghasura was very happy they walked in, but the main person he wanted did not walk in, and that was Krishna. So he was waiting. He said, now how long am I going to keep this mouth open? But I have to keep it open, right? Until he comes in. Now Krishna from far saw the Gopas going in. He knew exactly who Aghasura was, because he knew it was the family business, and he knew this is the other brother come. So he thought, but if I enter, how will I be able to save them? Because once I enter the mouth of this serpent, he will close it, and then how will I save them? Krishna was thinking that way, but Krishna is Krishna after all. So what he did was he entered. The moment he entered, all the Devatas who were watching, they became very scared. They thought, now surely Krishna has made a wrong decision. He should have attacked the snake from outside, not inside. And so the snake shut his mouth, which was very, very tight, and he thought, now I have Krishna. The snake has so much poison within him, especially Aghasura, that within no time this poison will dissolve the bodies of the boys and Krishna. Or so he thought. But in the meantime, when Krishna saw that the Gopas were inside, and the Gopas were anxious, and they said, Krishna, this cave is very dark. There is this fumes which are poisonous. Please save us. The moment they said that, in Bhagavatam, the residents would pray to Krishna, 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 Mahabhaga. That means, Krishna, you are the most fortunate one. What they mean is, if we are always with you, then your fortune will be ours. That is Mahabhaga. You see, we generally want to make our own fortune. Foolish. We cannot make our own fortune. Without his sanction, no fortune is yours. So the residents of Vrindavan are very intelligent. They always say, Krishna, you are Mahabhaga. You are Mahabhaga. Therefore, your fortune is ours. When Krishna heard this, he decided, let me now kill Aghasura. Let him go back to his brother and sister. Then the family business is over. So he began to expand. Now, if demons can expand, what do you think about the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Krishna expanded himself in such a way, Bhagavatam tells us, that there was no place within Aghasura where he could even take a morsel or moment of breath. For your breath, you need to take it in, you need to take it out. You need space. But Krishna covered all spaces within Aghasura to the point where he was completely choked. And as he was choked, he had no choice. The air had to leave. And the air of Aghasura, the life air, the prana, it left through the top of his head. Why did it leave the top of his head? Because Krishna was within Aghasura. If any one of you are yogis or you understand Patanjali's yoga, you will know that the Sahasra chakras which are within us, the highest chakra is at the top. And the great yogis, the most auspicious death is when they're able to channel the life air through the top of the head, right? Generally, for 90% of us, the life air will leave either through the mouth. When people are dying, you see the final exhalation normally comes out through the mouth. Sometimes if a person has not been very good in life, very often, I've worked in a hospice as a volunteer and I saw this personally. Many people who are in the lower modes of ignorance, who have led a life which is completely not God conscious, very often their life air will pass through the anus. And that is why most people before they die actually pass urine and stool. It's not something you hear about unless you are working there. It's not the niceties of death that people want to hear. But Bhagavatam tells us this is the truth. This is the truth. And Bhagavatam is never compromising of truth. So when a great saintly person leaves, he leaves no waste behind. He's very clean. And it's very difficult to get that actually. And so Aghasura, a great demon, had this great fortune of leaving from the top of his head. Why? Because Krishna was inside him. Even though one may be a demon, but if he gets the Brahma Sparshanam of Krishna, it is stated, the demon can also be purified. And Aghasura, as Krishna came out of Aghasura's dead body, that light and spark of Aghasura, it merged into Krishna. That's why for Krishna, whether you are standing with him on the side of the battle, like the Pandavas were, or you were standing across, like the Kauravas were, he was so merciful, he gave liberation even to his enemies, because they had darshan of him. No one can be like Krishna. No one can have the depth of mercy as Krishna does. And so Aghasura died. And all the boys came out and they were very happy with Krishna. And for many, many days, the dead body of Aghasura was there, like a highway. And all the Vrindavan boys would come and they would play there because they were completely assured of their safety. So Aghasura in Shastras represents envy and cruelty. Shastras tell us that Aghasura is a demon. He represents envy. The snake is normally considered to be the emblem of envy. But Bhagavatam tells us snake is envious because very often it is threatened. But human beings are envious, right? Not like the snake. Snake is envious because it is defensive. But human beings, when they are envious, they are not defensive, they are offensive. They are offensive. So we should never be like the snake. And we should never be envious of anyone. Aghasura's envy eventually led to his destruction. And if we are not careful, our envy of those who are doing better in life than us will also be a cause of our destruction. They sleep very well. Those whom you envy, they have a good night's sleep. But you can't sleep because you're always envious, thinking of them. How can he be doing so well? How can she be having this thing? And we can't take it. That is Aghasura. So you see, in just few minutes, one beautiful pastime of Krishna, and how meaningful it is, isn't it? So we request everyone, please read about Krishna. This book that I'm speaking from is known as Krishna book. I don't have a copy here with me, but if you go online, right, and you just Google Krishna book, right, ISKCON, you will find it's probably online. It's on Vedabase actually online. Madhuri, I'll share. You have it, right? I'll share the link also, and you can just read it. And it's all in prose. There is no Sanskrit to it, which means it's very simple English. Even children read it. Many children go to sleep reading one chapter of Krishna book. It's so wonderful. And children are never afraid of these demons because in their heart, they know Krishna always kills the demons. So you don't have to worry about whether my child's going to get nightmares or anything. No, they won't. They are quite happy actually. So please, read about Krishna, think about Krishna, serve Krishna, and be happy with Krishna.